In the year 2247, the Valorian Dominion controlled nearly 40% of known space. For 3 centuries, they had conquered world after world, assimilating entire civilizations into their empire. They were efficient. They were unstoppable. They had never, in recorded history, encountered a species they could not defeat. Their military doctrine was simple: identify the threat, calculate the optimal strike vector, and eliminate resistance before it could organize. The Valorians were logical, measured, perfect in their execution, until they found Earth. On a cold morning in November, the sensors of Earth Space Defense Command detected them first. Not one warship, not a dozen, but an armada, a super fleet of over 200 vessels, arranged in formations that had crushed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. The flagship alone, a dreadnought christened the Eternal Dominion, was so massive that astronomers initially mistook it for a space station. "This is control," a woman's voice crackled across the secure channels. "All units, this is command. We have hostile contacts entering the system. Stand by for orders." Her name was Admiral Chen, and in that moment, she became the last hope for the human race. The Valorian transmission came within hours. It was broadcast on all frequencies, on every channel, in every language humanity spoke. It was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. "Primitive species of the planet designated Sol 3. You have been identified as non-compliant with Dominion law. Your resources will be absorbed. Your population will be processed. Resistance will result in immediate annihilation. You have 1 standard hour to surrender all military forces and planetary control. Failure to comply will be treated as an act of war." They gave them 60 minutes. In boardrooms and government chambers, in military bunkers and humble homes across the globe, humanity received the message. And humanity did something the Valorians had not anticipated. They began to choose. Some chose surrender. Fear is rational. Survival is rational. But others, many others, chose something else entirely. They chose defiance. They chose to fight knowing full well they could not win. They chose because some things matter more than living. Some things matter because of why you live. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of the orbital defense station, watching the Valorian fleet approach. Her officers looked to her, waiting for a miracle. They would not get one. The disparity in their forces was mathematical. 1 human destroyer versus 5 Valorian cruisers. 1. All stations, report readiness. Chen commanded, her voice steady as stone. The reports came in. Weapons charged. Shields online. Crews at battle stations. They were ready. Ready to die. Ready to lose. Ready to fight anyway. The Valorian flagship transmitted again. 5 minutes remained. On the surface of Earth, in cities and towns and villages, people gathered. Soldiers marched to their posts. Doctors prepared hospitals that they knew would be overwhelmed. Teachers held their students close. And in every corner of human civilization, something peculiar began to happen. People began to help each other. A young man in Mumbai went to the nearest hospital and donated blood, knowing the Valorians would have no use for humanitarian gestures, but understanding that even if humanity lost today, they would face it together. In Sao Paulo, a teacher created a plan to preserve human knowledge, books, art, music, mathematics, hidden in locations the enemy might not find. In Moscow, a father sat down with his daughter and told her stories about what it meant to be human, in case the empire tried to erase it. And in orbit, Admiral Chen made a choice that would echo through the ages. "Transmit a response," she ordered. "All channels, maximum power." Her communications officer looked uncertain. "Admiral, what do we send?" Chen's eyes never left the approaching enemy vessels. "The truth." The transmission burst across the void, reaching not only the Valorian flagship but broadcast to every corner of known space. It was a message from humanity, from Chen, from every soldier and every citizen who chose to stand and face extinction rather than submit to erasure. "Valorian Dominion," the message began. "We hear your demands. We understand our situation. By every metric of military power, by every calculation of force and resource, you are right. We cannot defeat you. You will destroy our fleet. You will overcome our defenses. You will take our world. This is not a question. This is fact." The words were simple, clear, honest. "But before you do, we want you to understand something. Something perhaps your machines have failed to measure. We are offering you something far more valuable than resources or planets. We are offering you the story of what we choose to do now." In the command center, Chen paused. The Valorian ships were still approaching. 2 minutes remained. "We choose to fight, not because we believe we will win. We choose to fight because fighting matters. We choose to protect each other. We choose to preserve our culture, our knowledge, our love. Not for ourselves, many of us will not survive this day, but for those who come after, for the memory of what we were, for the possibility of what we could have been." The first human missile launched. It was a beautiful, terrible thing. Burning against the black of space, it streaked toward the Valorian formation and died against their shields like a flame against stone. And then something unexpected happened. The Valorian ships hesitated. On the Eternal Dominion, in the command center of the Superfleet, the Valorian High Commander, a being of crystalline intelligence and cold logic, processed the human transmission. They processed the missile launch. They processed the known tactical data about humanity's defensive capabilities. And they processed something else. The Valorian High Commander had spent 3 centuries studying strategy, analyzing enemy behavior, calculating the variables of conquest. They had never encountered this variable before. A species that fought not to win, but to mean something by the act of fighting. The second human wave launched. These ships would die too. The Valorians knew this with absolute certainty. But as the missiles streaked through space, something shifted in the cold logic of the Dominion's strategic calculations. "Redirect all fire," the High Commander ordered. Their tactical officer was stunned. "Commander, the human forces are destroying themselves with each salvo. They are no tactical threat." "I am aware," the High Commander replied. "Redirect all fire away from the planet. Target only their military assets in space. Minimize collateral casualties." It was a small gesture. The Valorians could have incinerated the human homeworld and been done with it. They could have glassed the planet from orbit and reduced humanity to historical footnotes. But something had changed. Something in their vast computational network had encountered a variable that could not be eliminated. The value of witnessing human choice. For 3 hours, the battle raged. Admiral Chen's fleet, every ship, every fighter, every defense platform, fought with courage that transcended strategy. They fought knowing they would lose. They fought because the Eternal Dominion and its superfleet were never in danger. But they were no longer indifferent. The Valorians had come to conquer. Instead, they found themselves watching as human after human made the same choice. Not to surrender, not to despair, but to do what they could, however little it mattered in the cosmic scale. A pilot named Marcus Torres took his fighter directly at a Valorian cruiser. His weapons were exhausted. His shields were down. He was going to die. But instead of ejecting, he transmitted a message to his family. "I loved you. I was proud to stand with you. Remember this." And he flew straight into the enemy guns, not for victory. He knew there would be none. But so that his family would know that at least at the end he chose. He chose meaning over mere survival. He chose to matter. The High Commander watched this. Watched a single human being flying a flaming death trap directly into the weapons of a ship 1,000 times more powerful. Watched the explosion. Watched the defiance. "This is not conquest," the High Commander said to their tactical team. And there was something in their voice that their officers had never heard before. Something that might have been awe. "This is witnessing." When the dust of the final engagement settled, human space was devastated. The orbital infrastructure was torn apart. The fleet was gone. Earth had lost thousands of brave soldiers and citizens. But the planet remained, intact, breathing. The Valorian Dominion, for the first time in 3 centuries, withdrew. They did not conquer Earth. They did not annex its resources. They did not add humanity to their growing list of conquered species. Instead, they left. When the High Commander transmitted their final message, it was not a declaration of victory. It was something far more profound. Species of Earth, you have demonstrated a principle that our civilization had calculated away. You have shown that victory and defeat are not the only measures of an encounter. You have shown that meaning itself is a form of power, perhaps the only power that truly matters. We will not conquer you. We cannot. Not because we lack the strength, but because you have already defeated us in the only way that matters. You have forced us to see you, to truly see you, and that seeing changes everything. The superfleet departed. They turned away from Earth and moved deeper into space, and in every star-faring civilization that heard of what happened, from the crystalline beings of Altair to the hive minds of the Kepler expanse, something shifted. Humanity, the young species on the forgotten planet, had stood alone against an empire and had not been conquered. They had not won. They had done something far greater. They had mattered. On the surface of Earth, as the sky cleared and the Valorian vessels disappeared into the stars, people emerged from their shelters. There was devastation. There was loss. There was grief for those who would not return. But there was also something else, a knowledge burning bright and eternal, that they had faced the worst the galaxy had to offer, and they had chosen. They had chosen to be human. They had chosen to stand. They had chosen to let their defiance matter, even in the face of impossible odds. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of the command center, looking up at the stars, and she understood. The Valorian machines could calculate force and power and conquest, but they could not calculate this. The infinite strength of a species that chooses to stand together, chooses to fight not because they will win, but because standing matters, because choosing matters, because we are human. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If the story of courage in the face of impossible odds moved you, if it kindled something deep in your heart about what we, as a species, are truly capable of, then I ask you to subscribe. Come back for more tales from the stars. More stories of humanity discovering, again and again, that we are not defined by our power or our resources. We are defined by our choice. We are defined by what we do when we stand at the edge of the abyss and choose to stand anyway. Because that is what it means to be human. Thank you for listening.